Hey, Ross Woodward, Bob Davis. Happy Veterans Day. Sorry to interrupt the holiday, but I just wanted to send along a little video to you about the importance of Veterans Day. And I'm going to be reading what's called the America's White Table. It's really a great book that explains the importance of Veterans Day and why we should be celebrating it. And I know you have moms, dads, uncles, grandmas, grandparents, cousins, brother-in-laws, whatever, that are serving our country or may have served our country, who you should really say thank you to today, because it's really important. And if you don't have a veteran in your family, let's find a veteran and say thank you to them, because some of you might be future veterans, and I think it's really important because we all need people to protect our freedoms, and that may be one of you. So I'm going to put on my old man glasses, and I'm going to read what's called America's White Table. And this is by Margot Thies Raven, and she's the writer, and the illustrator is Mike Benny. And I really want you to look at the illustrations because they're really beautiful. And it's only about a 5-minute book, so it shouldn't take too long. But I want to share this with you because it's really important. Again, it's called America's White Table. So, it was just a little white table, but it brought tears of pride to my Uncle John's eyes. The Veterans Day, he came for dinner and stood by it, set for one person, even though nobody would be eating at it. That's curious. It was just a little white table, but earlier that day, Mama had told Gretchen, Samantha, and me the little white table we were setting for Veterans Day was just like the ones that have stood across America in the dining halls of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force since the Vietnam War ended. The table honors the men and women who serve in America's armed forces, especially those missing in action, our MIAs, and those held prisoner of war, our POWs. Look at how beautiful those pictures are. It was just a little white table, but it felt as big as America when we helped Mama put each item on it, and she told us why it was so important. We use a small table, girls, she explained first, to show one soldier's lonely battle against many. We cover it with a white cloth to honor a soldier's pure heart when he answers his country's call to duty. We place a lemon slice and grains of salt on a plate to show a captive soldier's bitter fate and the tears of families waiting for loved ones to return, she continued. We push an empty chair to the table for the missing soldiers who are not here. We lay a black napkin for the sorrow of captivity and turn over a glass for the meal that won't be eaten, she said. We place a white candle for peace and finally a red rose in a vase tied with a red ribbon for the hope that all our missing will return someday. Mama finished speaking just as sunlight spilled on the table and filled the overturned glass. It was just a little white table, but it suddenly made me want to burst with a feeling I couldn't explain when Mama told us how much our setting the white table would mean to Uncle John that night. Then she told us something we didn't know. Our Uncle John, who gave us big bear hugs and spun us with airplane twirls and called me his Katie girl, was a POW in Vietnam before we were born. It was just a little white table, but it gave us the courage to ask Mama what happened to Uncle John in Vietnam. She quietly told us his story. When Uncle John served in Vietnam, he was sent on a rescue mission, and his helicopter was shot down behind enemy lines, she began. And he and his 3 crew members were taken prisoner. One crew member named Mike had serious wounds from the crash, but Uncle John and the other men tried to help Mike get better and persuaded a guard to bring Mike some medicine. Then, one day, when a guard looked away, Uncle John and the others had a chance to escape, but Mike was still too sick to go. So Uncle John stayed behind because he wouldn't leave a fellow soldier alone so far from home. But how did Uncle John get free, we asked Mama. Well, sometime later, Uncle John had a chance to escape again, and somehow he was able to take Mike with him, carrying him on his back and collecting just enough rainwater in the big leaves to help keep them alive until Uncle John found an American infantry unit to help them. But even though Uncle John did everything he could to bring Mike home alive, Mike's wounds were just too serious and he died before the rescue helicopter landed. I know that Mike was only 20 years old and he dreamed of playing football, but he loved America enough to give his life for his country when duty called. And I know how much Uncle John loves America too, but he learned when helping Mike that a soldier risks his freedom for a fellow soldier because the best of your country lives in every man and woman who would lay down their lives for you as well. It was just a little white table, but it needed words of gratitude, like Mama's Thanksgiving meal. So before Uncle John arrived for dinner, Gretchen and Samantha and I decided to put 3 gifts of our own onto the table to honor our veterans. Gretchen colored pictures of all the objects on the table, and Samantha wrote out the words, "To my country 'tis of thee," as a tribute in song. But I didn't know what I, a 10-year-old girl, could ever put onto the table that was as important as each veteran's gift of freedom to me. It was just a little white table, but I looked at it all dinner long, and in the quiet inside me, I could almost hear the silent soldiers of the empty chair saying, "Remember us, please. We are real people like your Uncle John and Mike, who have families and friends, homes and dreams of our own, to protect your birthright of liberty from disappearing as easily as sunlight from a glass." It was just a little white table, but it took my words away when I hugged Uncle John goodnight and wanted to thank him for serving our country so bravely. So I just hugged him even harder and told him I loved him. Uncle John hugged me back even harder than I had hugged him. And that's when I knew what I could not put on the table. My promise to put the words from my heart into a little book about America's white table. And in the book, I'd use Gretchen's pictures and Samantha's song and Mama's story about Uncle John and his friend Mike, because I hoped that everyone who read it would set a white table on Veterans Day too, so the brave Americans the little white table honors won't ever feel forgotten by the country they loved so much. And that is the story of America's white table. I hope you guys have a great rest of today, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.